All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're ready to get rolling here. Let's see what we got for you today. What is potluck in store for us? Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon or good evening, wherever it is in the world you're coming to us from. My name's Tom, otherwise known as Striking, here in the digital media world. So glad to be hosting another episode of DYOR Live here on the DYOR Media Network. As always, we're coming to you from the great... once again, I'm in a different place. Coming to you from the remote headquarters of the DYOR Media Network, known as above my parents' garage in Florida. But the good news is that it doesn't matter where we're coming to us from. We bring the good info for you, bring the good discussion, and hopefully you guys bring the chills, the shills, and the comments here to make this a good show. And normally this is where I say, welcome to my co-host Pedro Garcia. Pedro is still on vacation. This music's loud in my ear. I hope it's not for you guys. He's on vacation doing personal things. He's doing some good stuff this week to help out those less fortunate. It's one of the good things I love about my co-host. But he's not here, so he's out. But instead, our frequent guest here that we have on the show periodically, you've seen him as our politician DC Wonk, as we like to refer him, in front of the camera, behind the camera. We call him our expert on everything going on in the Beltway. But to everybody else, he's known as Chris. Chris Alexander, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us once again.
Thanks for having me. I prefer a DC Bureau Chief for DYOR.
DC Bureau Chief. Oh, here we go. There we go. I think we've just established a new title, and we shall double your pay accordingly.
Awesome. I'll send him my wallet.
So, Chris, how's it going? We haven't seen you in a while. What's been going on since the last time we saw you?
Well, some unusual movement in the presidential race, and of course matters to people here in crypto policy.
Well, there's certainly been a lot of that going on, as we know. Just the events this last week that's been happening with the attempted assassination, and of course with the Republican National Convention. Before we get into the heart of the discussion today, I just want to say I spent some time tracking the price of Bitcoin during the convention. And I noticed on day one, it pumped during the convention. Bitcoin just pumped. Volume was thin, and all of a sudden it pumped during it. I was like, well, that was interesting. So I tracked it on day two. Sure enough, it pumped again. And I was like, last night again I was watching it. All right, I'm gonna try and see if we can make this a play. And so I went long, right, as the time. Not a lot of money, just a little bit of margin just to test out my theory. And it started pumping again. And last night, I don't know if you saw it, but they had a World War II veteran on. He's like 99 years old. Walked up onto the stage by himself, read a speech by himself. He's 99 years old. Came over the beaches at Normandy. Could pull out a speech better than President Biden. And Bitcoin absolutely shot through the roof during this period. It was amazing. And he transitioned into Eric Trump. And as soon as Eric Trump walked out, Bitcoin absolutely crashed. I was up like $30. And I was like, woo, I'm up $30. And I'm watching the thing, and I look at my phone again, and I'm down $10 in like 5 seconds. I'm like, what the? And then when he was done with his speech, it pumped again. So I think Bitcoin has turned a little bit into a gauge of politics and what's going on with what is light.
I don't know if you saw, and for people inside the U.S. aren't allowed to participate in it, but there's a Poly market. It's like it's a crypto betting market. They based it on what I think was a DARPA project in the 90s, but they had experts do a futures market on political events and other things to see if, the whole how many people can guess some marbles in a jar. When you average it, you get an answer kind of theory, game theory stuff. But they got Nate Silver from 538 now is like an advisor to them. And I went and looked at it. And what I haven't seen is how often they're right or wrong. So maybe I need to see, because I couldn't see past. But I'd be curious to gauge that, and then look at Bitcoin as well, and see what those movements are. But yeah, that's kind of wild that the guy who probably doesn't own Bitcoin is driving prices up, and then the minute he's done, everyone sells.
I thought it was really funny about that. But Chris, before we get to more talking about you, I'm going to take a second just to address our loyal following here, and see what's going on with our guests. I mean, our viewers. As everyone knows, we like little interaction. When I see some familiar names in the house, I've got a little different setup here today, guys. So stand by here while I try to sort this out. Let's make sure this works. We got. Oh, that didn't work. That worked. We got Crypto Mike in the house. Crypto Mike, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. No sound effects today. It looks like I got the comments behind the bar here. We got Dara Lawton coming to us from Madrid. Thank you very much, Dara, for joining in as usual. And from all the way from Zimbabwe, we got Royal Q. Royal Q, I read an interesting article yesterday about flights of cash that come into Zimbabwe on a regular basis because the economy has transitioned basically into a United States dollar cash market. Let us know if that's true or not, because then I know a lot of the money we pay to mint is going to your country. Chuck Jansen's in the house. Still time to grab some pear. Let me see if I can get rid of this banner correctly here. Let's see. Let's find. I gotta redo where that is. Still time to grab some pear here. Where's everybody else? Space Cat, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. Good day, everyone. I'm finally here at the beginning of the show, only because my son called and woke me up. Oh, time zones. What else we got? We got Trisha in the house. Trisha, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. Any of you who are operating in new projects, please drop these in the telegrams. I have a bunch of old telegrams of projects that are now dead. Let's try and get the word out for the show. Spread it out. Get more viewers on here. We're doing good stuff here. AI Alpha Wolf says we're not doing a space. Fridays is Full Rant Friday, X Spaces. Today, DYOR live show. And obviously we're doing it. Somehow my comments are doubling up here. Crypto Mike says, from the tin can. I'm guessing that means my microphone sounds like it's a tin can. I've been trying to get this one to work, but I'm relying on the one in my computer, and it is terrible. Although I can probably mix it up a little. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, thanks to everybody for joining us. I really appreciate it. Send us your comments. If you want me to review a chart, we'll be doing that later in the show. If you want to bring a community in to do it, let's do a little bit later in the show. But before, I'd like to get back to my friend Chris Alexander. We're going to talk a little bit about the nexus of crypto and politics. And it's important just for my example that I told you a little bit ago, but I was watching Bitcoin move and in line with who's speaking at the Republican National Convention. Now, as they say, correlation is not causation, but you never know in crypto. You never know. So it's something you need to pay attention to, especially if you're playing that futures market that we keep telling you about with our sponsor, BitFi. I couldn't let that go. BitFi's exchange, which I'll talk about later, based in Singapore, registered in the Seychelles, legal to do business with Americans and Canadians. And so below in this, you'll find a sign-up form. Sign up and get free money. You should do that. Who doesn't want free money? But we also like to say, do your own research. Anyway, I am going to bring Chris back on because I wanted to bring up something. We talked briefly about this, Chris, at the beginning of the show. The bullet. Today's topic, everyone knows, is crypto's ear. And crypto's ear, I thought it to be a very prescient term in which, as we know, Mr. Trump has been more open to the crypto argument than President Biden. My opinion is that anything Biden hates, Trump loves. So he immediately said, hey, there's swing state voters out there that really want crypto. We're going to embrace that. And he's done all the right overtures to the crypto industry. He's speaking at Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville this week, right after the convention is over. It's the first time a former president and presidential candidate nominee has ever addressed a crypto conference. The bullet has only made him more popular. Everyone understands this. It's not a. I mean, it obviously has a time frame on it. The longer things go, the less he gets out of that. But also with his popularity at the highest level yet, probably according to that website you're talking about, we have the idea that there's more pressure on President Biden to step aside as the nominee and do a Lyndon Johnson and say, I cannot and will not accept the nomination for the presidency of the United States. You youngsters probably don't know that, but it's a famous video. And whoever's going to know is going to come to that, whether it's, Camilla, whether it is Michelle Obama, whether it is Gavin Newsom, or a litany of people, they're probably going to pander to crypto. So it could be a good thing. Do you sense this in Washington, or are there other undertones going on there?
Well, I think the crypto pivot that you saw from the Trump campaign was solid politics, looking at numbers and saying, with 1 in 5 Americans owning crypto. And I think I saw something from Coinbase's public affairs efforts that I think 1 in 6 voters are in swing states that own crypto. It made sense. Obviously, the more libertarian free market approach is traditionally in the Republican camp, although, you had the Teamsters speak at the RNC convention, and you had a couple of other interesting developments on.
That was nuts.
Yeah. And JD Vance at one point, when asked, who's sort of your, how do you want to put it, kind of congressional soulmate when it comes to industrial policy, actually said Elizabeth Warren. Meaning, wants to crack down on industry. We can debate how effective she's been at going after the banks, but so it was an easier place to maneuver. There was more freedom maneuver on the right to go after crypto, because keep in mind, going back 2 years ago, you had the Dear Colleague letter that came out and said to Democrats on the Hill, we're going to start attacking crypto, specifically Bitcoin, for energy consumption. So
right.
They've spent a lot of time getting the green lobby to oppose Bitcoin mining. And there's been some great research showing that it's significantly more renewable. And, I'm a huge fan of methane mitigation for Bitcoin mining and all that, but you're talking past people at that point. So I think the challenge for Democrats is, how do you embrace crypto and then say, well, we didn't really mean it about the environmental issues? Because you've invested a lot of time in getting people excited about that and saying it's a scam. I was trying to find it. I'm not that much of a nerd, I guess, but I didn't succeed. But I was trying to find Biden's crypto donations, because remember, after they said crypto's evil and Trump accepted crypto donations, so did the Biden campaign. Right. And I mean, a lot of people are not donating right now, so that could also mask it. I couldn't find the numbers anyways, but I'd be kind of curious about that. I suspect they're not raking in the same amount of crypto that the Republicans are. But I'll tell you, the really wild thing that's happened this week, aside from an attempted assassination, on a pure policy side, is Jamie Dimon. Jamie Dimon has been sort of floated, whispered as potentially being the, I think, Secretary of the Treasury. And I've criticized Jamie Dimon on appearances. I got to the point where our lawyers
it's been nice knowing you.
Well, I got to the point where our lawyers said, you are right on the edge. If you go any further, if they figure out who you are, because they could care less who I am, let's be honest, we're going to get like a defamation lawsuit. I was pointing out that if you take, and I'll be very careful I say this, but if you take all of the fines ever levied against crypto, that still doesn't match one of the banks that Jamie Dimon was a senior leader at, and their fines from the SEC. Sometimes maybe I was more colorful.
Yeah, I've covered that on this show too, and the numbers are staggering.
Yeah, and what do you need to launder cryptocurrency? Because unless you're trading for goats and a hard wallet, you kind of need a bank. But anyways, but I've been pretty critical of him, and he's changed his position. Now you can say, oh, well, first of all, by the way, one of the things I love is, oh, that guy changed his mind. Oh, I'm sorry. What you want, like moral certitude from a politician? Like you're not looking in the right place.
Moral certitude.
But I do worry that they're just lying. right? To get votes.
True.
Not that Damon's running, but what was interesting was, and I don't know him personally. I don't know anyone that knows him. I guess I kind of wish I did. I'd have a house in the Hamptons, but or a jet. But people, he was speaking, and I don't know, he hurt himself. I hope he gets better. He had a dinged up wing. I don't know when this was, but he goes, when I made that stupid statement, and he was referencing when he said, if I were in the U.S. government, I would make crypto illegal. He said that in testimony. He said, when I made that stupid statement, that night I got an email from my daughter, and she said, Dad, I own 2 Bitcoins. What are you doing? And then he laughed at it. And so, for some of that stature to be able to laugh at themselves, I had to hand it to him. And it sounds like he's legitimately changed his position. Now, keep in mind, while he was saying crypto was a devil, JP Morgan owns an entire crypto company that's building its own blockchain. Right. And I believe they bought into every single ETF. So I don't know how much of that was market making and how much he believed. But if we can believe that Trump has changed his position and is going to be steadfast and support crypto, there's no reason to think that Jamie Dimon wouldn't. But so that to me was really interesting, because either way, to see someone who's been a pretty vocal critic in Congress in testimony turn like that, I think is even more valuable than if there's a new Democratic candidate and the Democrats pivot a little bit.
Jamie Dimon has hinted at, his time at, as our viewer Dara said, JP America. JP Morgan is coming to an end. What a fitting way for him to transition into further godlike status in the banking community to be Secretary of Treasury. Wasn't
it Carnegie or Mellon? I forget which. Mellon, right? Mellon became the Secretary of the Treasury, moving on from his Titanic empire. Maybe
that's right.
More than he should have. But I can imagine if I'm Jamie Dimon and I'm like, what's left on the old bucket list? I think it's top Mellon is probably, he certainly knows about it. So it's interesting. I do think that on the crypto side, the industry and the community now needs to kind of corral this broad magic I love crypto, I love Bitcoin hand wave, and Bitcoin mining. He even got that deep down into right. Some sort of coherent policy. I read I think it was the draft of the Republican Party platform, and it was like you should have the right to self-custody and people should be able to mine. I think they're overlooking something, or I think a vector that both sides should consider is high performance computing, therefore Bitcoin, therefore hash rate, and the energy infrastructure required to support it are national security issues. And I know that there's a good chunk of the Bitcoin community that are more on the kind of anarcho-capitalist side that don't like seeing government involved. I get that. But I think if you present it to the government in that way, spiting China, I would argue Bitcoin's the first digital strategic resource in the world. It's a rare earth mineral. It's just digital. I think it's something the United States should care about and should foster. And now we can argue, okay, well, how much do you want the government's hand in it? But I think if you start to position it that way, it's easy to sell to people that don't know anything about Bitcoin and don't like it, but are Republicans.
Right. For the viewers out there, for those who don't understand, I'm sure you understand what high performance computing is. But in essence, think of the large data centers set up to mine Bitcoin. Those things are cranking out computations, but it's not only good for Bitcoin. They're good for AI, the legwork or the brain work behind AI. They're good for powering things like Amazon and their whole system, and other companies like Twitter that use massive amounts of behind the scenes computational power to just drive ecosystems. And so when our guest here refers to that being a national strategic asset, imagine if one hacker takes down, if we all rely on AI for the basic job functions that we do, like AI's in taking over bookkeeping, the basics of article writing, all of those lower level jobs that can be automated. Imagine if a hacker is able to take those down and that first level of our economy just comes to a halt. And so all of that going on in the high performance computing centers is important. Now, linking that to crypto, imagine if it took down TradingView, like the actual TradingView that powers almost every trading website charting system out there. The markets would come to a complete halt. Pretty much the whole world relies on TradingView to work, and they have data centers out the wazoo. Or I shouldn't say they have data centers. They rent data space in data centers. And if that comes to a halt, all of a sudden people can't trade Bitcoin. You can't pay for things in crypto because people don't know the price. It's really important. And I agree with you that it's a national strategic asset type thing. And I'm not sure. Go ahead.
To that point, there's kind of been another interesting development this week. Not a giant pubco, but a big U.S. mining company is either entertaining or enter talks. I can't remember the specifics, but with an AI company. AI companies are now looking to buy Bitcoin. And I've heard about one site up, I think in Michigan, where someone was doing a bunch of mining. These AI companies are actually coming up and buying the sites wholesale so that they can get the energy. And maybe they're doing something with the ASICs and converting them. I don't know the specifics there, but it's one and the same. And I think that this AI supercomputing, whatever you want to call it, and Bitcoin mining hash rate, they're two sides of the high performance computing coin. And the more industry and the more the community combines those terms together, the more you're able to say, no, this is really important. And one other thing I think that Bitcoin has done, Satoshi Nakamoto, him, them, her, the entity, they were pretty good about thinking over the long term and accounting for things. So we're getting against this kind of bizarre energy usage versus hash rate and inefficiencies. And it's forcing innovations in chip making and in ASIC manufacture, because it's not sustainable to spend $20,000, $30,000 on electricity to get one Bitcoin unless the price continues to go up. And of course, if it doesn't, right, market dynamics, but it pushes innovation. And so whether intended or not, one of the most impressive things to me about Bitcoin at its creation was it's now forcing better chip design and better high performance computing. And that spills over into other sectors. It's almost like the way, space race got you, I don't know, Velcro, or I guess UPS,
ink
right?
pens.
Yeah. Well, we spent all that money on an ink pen, and the Russians, of course, just used a pencil and saved $1 million.
We use pencil.
So it's, I think, another facet of this to try to bring into it. And the last piece I'd say is, yeah, they're big on Bitcoin because Bitcoin is the Coca-Cola of soda, if you will. But I think the entire crypto industry benefits. This probably accelerates the likelihood of a Solana ETF approval if Trump wins, and a bunch of things that affect all coins as well as Bitcoin.
Well, all things Bitcoin is good. Let's do our. Why is this pausing? Seems my internet connection's a little crappy right now. Everyone, just give me a second here to catch up. If anyone's experiencing a herky-jerky thing, please let us know. Or if our voices sound like an old Bruce Lee movie, badly dubbed, also let us know. My comment section is... yeah.
Make it more.
You killed my brother. Now we fight. Let's see. I'm trying to come up with the comment section here. Where did it go? There it is. All right, ladies and gentlemen. AI Alpha Wolf says, if BTC hits 70,300 by Friday night, the leverage trading is going to be 90 days of God spike. You're calling it. You're calling it. But anyway, let's just do that. Let's just take a moment. Oh, I don't have the comments on right. I have to do it like that. Sit over here. See, I'm doing stuff differently today, and it doesn't always work out. But anyway, let me see if I can do this. Let's talk briefly about Bitcoin here in the market before we get into some other esoteric topics that we love to talk about, things like brics and CBDCs. CBDCs. Get that. I'm like about to say CBD oil, and I'm like, no, that's not.
I think you may have just launched a spectacular meme coin.
If people would launch meme coins based on my gaffes, we would all be there'd be lots of them, and we'd be poor.
Well, it could be like the CBDC, and you can only buy like CBD oil with it.
Let's see. Which one is this the right one? Let's try this. That would be it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get a quick market look at the market here right now. If you've been listening to Pedro and I, as you know, Pedro famously called the market. I've got the 1 minute chart up. Why do I look at that? Famously called the market coming down into the 50,000s here. And you've heard us talk about it, frankly, too much, I think. I'm not quite used to this bid-fi chart yet. All right, we're just going to have to go with that. Yesterday, I had it so screwed up, I couldn't even use it. And I miss my co-host, Pedro, greatly sometimes. But he famously called it coming down. I'm over here now. Coming down into the $50,000 range. 54,000. He was talking about 55,000. It dropped into 56. It wicked down into the 50. Let's see, what was its low here? 53 and change. And Pedro said it's still going to come back down there based on the technicals of the chart. However, we had a news cycle change, and I always tell you this: make sure when you're trading you use stop orders, because the news cycle may blow out your trading strategy, as it did mine. Like I said yesterday, I felt the market was going to come up to a certain point, reach it, and then get rejected and come down. So I put a limit order in to sell when it got up to a certain point. I put my stop order in above it. Somebody shoots a bullet at a man's ear, and the market blows through both of them, and they instantly lose the amount of margin I had prior to my stop order coming in. But the lesson is, you never know what's going to happen, even if the market's thin and volume isn't doing much. If you don't have a stop order, and it's like having naked options in which you have unlimited losses. So I want to reinforce this with you, because we're talking about our futures trading platform as a partner, and I want to triple reinforce that you need to use stop orders and trade wisely. And if you can see this right now, and just like yesterday, I'm trading unwisely. I am down $20 in my little trade here today. But the important point is that we were down. Pedro said we were going to keep going down. As he always says, we go up to go down. But the news cycle took us up, and the internet denzians are talking about it not even coming down now. As much as it dipped today, soon after I went long, that it's heading for, as AI Wolf said, 70,000, and really heading in towards the second half of the year, printing new all-time highs well into the $80,000 mark. Obviously, I don't know that. If I did, I would bet all the money in the world on it, and I would not have to do the show and talk to everybody here. All I would talk to would be a beer on a beach somewhere. And so obviously take my words with a grain of salt. But that's what Pedro and I have been going on. And since Pedro's been off, trying to summarize what's going on in the market. And as we know, Bitcoin drags other tokens with it. And so, Chuck, you've been talking about, I think Solana. Was it you? Or I forget which viewer was talking about Solana a lot. And Solana does its own thing sometimes, but lately, like everything else, they've been following Bitcoin because the overall volume of the market's been down low. Let's hit the comments real quick here to see what people actually want to talk about rather than what I'm talking about. Oh, good. There's no new comments. Anyway, thanks to everybody watching us on Twitter today, or X, I should say. We're broadcasting in X. I'm not monitoring the comments over there, so if you are posting a comment on it, jump over to the YouTube stream and post comments, participate in the discussion. We're also on Twitch and Kick. I am monitoring the comments on those things, and so for the 4 people watching over there, I really appreciate it. But we have a good crowd watching us on X and on YouTube. So let's hear it. If you've got somebody, you can drop this the link to this in another Telegram or another crypto community. Please do it. Let's get some viewers here, get some talking, and get those likes up. If Pedro, as he would be saying, telling you what to do, I'm telling you, just do it. Anyway, Chris, back to the discussion of brics. On this channel, we talk a lot about brics. I'm famously down on brics. I famously say, no chance, it's not going to happen. It turns out it is going to happen, but the chances of it working or not, are my biases, my thoughts about it are one thing, but the market thinks something else. From your perspective as the Washington D.C. bureau chief, what's the behind the scenes in Washington that people are talking about? Is this something they worry about or care about, or do they know if the most corrupt countries on the planet are going to put this together, then it's just not going to work?
Well, I think BRICS is an alliance. Most successful alliances in all of human history have been built on like common values. I'm not really sure what Brazil, South Africa, China, India, and Russia all have in common.
Corruption.
Well, and actually one other thing, which is the concern, which is resentment about how the United States uses sanctions and U.S. fiscal policy.
That's true. Very true.
And so that is a concern, especially when you see like the Saudis rolling in and attending conferences and all of these sort of signatories. I don't think BRICS is a meaningful alliance. What is alarming is they're going to take out, I think the G7, they're going to have more GDP than the G7 within a few years, like a decade. It's about parity. They talk kind of global South and global North, and there being a kind of a great power conflict. But my concern is, if you recall, we levied all these sanctions against Russia. And the minute that happened, I thought I should buy rubles because if the U.S. government's doing this, they're going to screw it up. And I just felt sort of uncomfortable profiting off of kind of Russian blood money. So I didn't do it.
Well, that did happen. Like when Russia invaded, their currency tanked and everyone's like, it's going to tank further. Nope. Went back up.
When we got involved, we showed them.
Right.
So it failed, of course. I think it's a single incident, right? It doesn't actually affect the price. But the most symbolic thing that happened was that the terrible Formula One driver, Mazepin, who's, your old colleague, sponsorship got him a drive in Formula One. They seized his father's yacht in Italy when they ran around grabbing people's stuff, closed the regime. And then I guess no one secured it in any way. So they came out to the dock one day and it said Mazepin was here and the yacht was gone. That's our sanction regime. So on a serious note for BRICS, the issue is that the United States got very heavy-handed in how it seized assets and froze accounts. And a lot of countries didn't support that and said, if you do that to them, you could do that to us one day. So it's got them looking at ways, I think, to avoid SWIFT and IBAN, which are, international money transfer systems. And that is where another currency to settle transactions other than the US dollar is of great interest to BRICS nations and their allies. And I think they could build a competitive system. The Chinese created Hong Kong now is like this digital innovation hub for cryptocurrency. I think they've all but said they're working on a CBDC. And so I think a BRICS CBDC would actually make a ton of sense. What would they back it by? I mean, we get into all kinds of monetary theory there, but no longer using the banking system that was developed by the US and its European allies to control global finance kind of would sound appealing if you don't get to run it. You're not in the G7. So I am concerned about that. It doesn't mean that you're going to wake up one day and there's going to be like a Chinese tank in your front yard and you're going to have to start using some, Chinese CBDC. But I do think it'll put pressure on the U.S. And if we continue to have just a crisis of incompetence in the U.S. government, it's something to be concerned about.
Well, just 1 second. I'm just posting this comment, trying to get some interaction here. Just do it. One of the things I've been, contemplating with this BRICS thing is obviously the sanctions and the not only the ability for the U.S. to enforce its power and its thought process, morality, whatever on other countries, is that the other countries don't like that. And two, they don't really like, especially a lot of the countries that are lower in the ground, lower on the corruption index. They don't like everything they do being overseen or surveilled by the United States, either by FinCEN in Canada, it's FinTrack and FinTrack and all that type of stuff. And I am more than certain that a lot of these countries are saying, "Hey, let's put our own system together here, and we don't have to. We can move money around. I can send money to my BRICS account wherever." and no one's going to care. No one's. I can suck money out of my country, put it over there, use it in BRICS, and put it over there, and not be subject to the U.S. going, "What are you doing with that money?" and that type of stuff. Obviously, there's other things to play. If the country's getting aid from the U.S., like USAID's dropping billions of dollars somewhere, there's rules for that. But the nexus, what we like to talk about in the show, where it gets to crypto. If someone figures out a gateway between crypto and fiat in our world currently, and a crypto fiat in BRICS world currently, the cesspool with lack of oversight is going to grow, frankly, a million times. I don't know a better way to say it other than BRICS could be the money laundering capital of the planet.
I would imagine that's why they're doing it. Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's honest reporting here on the DYOR Media Network.
I mean, years ago, there was an interview with Rudy Giuliani, and they said, do you think the Democrats are cheating? This is like 20 years ago. And in major cities. And he goes, well, I know we would. We just don't control any major cities. And I always thought that was a great answer because it's the truth. So, they resent accounts being frozen, assets being seized too aggressively. They think the U.S. has overstepped its mark. So, kind of gets back into one man's terrorist, another man's freedom fighter, one man's money launderer is another man's banker. So
that's true.
I'm sure that this is of interest. I think the Saudis show up to just to let the U.S. know, like, don't annoy us too much. Like, we like you guys, but we'll play for the other team. The idea, though, that like the Saudis or any of the Gulf states are going to join something where Iran is increasingly showing up as a member is unlikely. And how you make an alliance like that work? I mean, when I was in Iraq, the map said the Gulf, and I'm like, what is that, a typo? And someone's like, no, because it's either Arabian or Persian, and they both fight over it, so we just call it the Gulf now. So
that's right. That's a good point.
So like, you're going to get those guys in an alliance and agree on things. I mean, if you look at history, if you remember when they formed the Organization of Arab States, they deliberately made it an even number of countries because the British and the French could always make sure that it would never get anything done because there was no deciding vote. They did right. So there's going to be plenty of that. So, is BRICS this superpower? No. Are you going to get those people to get along? I'm not entirely sure how, but could they implement policy that could damage the dollar? Yes. Are they all interested in doing that? Pretty much, yes. And I think, what's going to happen is if this moves further along, you're going to see the FSB, not the Russian version, the financial, Stability Board, they work for the World Economic Forum. You'll see FinCEN. You'll see all of this pressure that will be placed on these countries to try to disrupt it. And that's only going to exacerbate the problem. Maybe it succeeds because they'll pick off smaller members, but it's just going to further polarize things. So either we head it off now, or the measures that we're going to have to take in our own national interest are going to make it even worse. And then that's going to potentially destabilize the dollar even further.
That's true. And here's this article here on Watcher.guru, who for some reason is very pro BRICS. Very rarely do they admit to, or I shouldn't say admit to posting pro dollar articles. But it says Iran proposes new ambitious de-dollarization campaign by volunteering to do the gracious thing of selling oil to all the countries that are currently not buying from them. Now there's an interesting way to do it, is just purely to sell to them. But the general interest is in these things, and like I like to say, you crypto people, why is Tom talking about this? Is the concept of liquidity. Just as if you want to trade, cat in box for, hat in cat, you have to go through a third party to do that. You have to go through Ethereum. You have to go through whatever the base token is. You can rarely swap directly because there's no liquidity. And if Iran wants to sell oil to Guyana or Equatorial Guinea or whatever it is in Africa, and they want to use their own currencies, there's no market for that. There's no foreign exchange market for that. They can show up with bags of each other's currency, and then they go, now what do we do? So what they do is they go through dollars. And in fact, the Chris, you probably know a little bit more about this than I do. The U.S. and the Saudis had a 50-year agreement for the Saudis to use the U.S. dollar for all of their oil transactions. They call it the petrodollar agreement of some sort, and that just expired. And that's, everyone's looking at Saudi saying, oh, they're pulling away from the dollar. Actually, they had an agreement with the U.S. to use our dollars for a long time. It expired. Now they're looking for a better deal or a lever to get a better deal with the U.S. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what they're doing. By the way, what's interesting about the whole arrangement, and that was all part of forming Aramco, when the U.S. showed up, remember, this is when British Petroleum was doing just truly horrible things in Iran, the Persian, I guess it was Persia, was it Iran then? Under the Shah.
I'll say the Gulf.
Yeah, under the Shah. They were horribly mistreating the Iranian people. And so when, the Texans and the U.S. went to the Saudis, they said, listen, here's our deal. The Saudis thought it was a trick because it was so fair. No one had ever offered people in the Middle East a deal that was that reasonable. And one of the terms was, hey, settle stuff in the dollar, which was great at the time, still solid now. And if people are like, I don't get what this has to do with crypto, it has to do with inflation. If like one of the reasons why we can print money, like it's going out of style, and have our second greatest expenditure in our entire federal budget be debt payments, which it now is. We spend more on that than national defense. So if we have an army to defend ourselves, what is our debt? It's a bigger threat than our own army is supposed to defend against. But anyways, if it's a faith-based currency, just like Bitcoin, the US dollar now. So if you no longer believe in the government, you no longer believe in the government's fiscal policies, and there's a competitor to the dollar, then if you're holding US dollars, they're potentially going to be devalued. I think there's been some analysis that shows over the life of crypto, it basically is beating the dollar because of inflation with its peaks and valleys. But you may want to think about, do I really want to hold a dollar? Do I really want to hold stable coins? Because, a lot of people like to hold stable coins like somewhere in the past in Argentina. I think they're still getting their inflation under control. But, you may want to start thinking that way if U.S. fiscal policy and, our economy doesn't turn around. None of this is imminent, though. I want to be clear. I'm not selling gold or anything. There's not an imminent problem, but you can see clouds forming on the horizon, and we either, metaphor is going to break down, but it's off on the horizon. It's not something to worry about now, but the U.S. needs to take action and do it in a way that the United States isn't used to doing, which is negotiating and diplomacy, and not just having the bully pulpit.
Well, you can see here one of the things that it's actually come up in the campaign now. It's reached the level in which it's gone from the backroom talk, the internet talk, the trolling talk on X and Twitter, he said, she said type stuff, to the point where a presidential candidate and nominee is talking about the U.S. must lead crypto to avoid a BRICS takeover. And I'm gonna guess that it's gonna be part of his speech that he talks about in Nashville this week in Nashville when he appears at the Bitcoin conference. It's the first time it's in Nashville. I wish I could have gone to it, but didn't work out for me this year. It says, with the market playing such an important role in 2024, Donald Trump has said that the U.S. has become a crypto leader, outpacing China in the BRICS alliance. Indeed, the 45th president, amid his re-election campaign, has pointed out the importance that digital assets will play on a global scale. Do you think the BRICS countries are just going to launch into a cryptocurrency, or do you think they'll give gold a chance or anything like that?
To be clear, you don't just mint a coin and then suddenly get people to spend it. Except apparently in the case of cryptocurrency.
Guys, get rid of that meme coin stuff.
I know it's ironic that I just said that, but for a monetary instrument for a nation state, it's a little different. So I hope, but it'd actually be pretty funny if the Chinese started minting like Biden meme coins or something. But, I think. Well, I mean, for the statements they're making, obviously, for politics, you kind of turn things to black and white. It's a little cartoonish. I don't think BRICS takes over crypto, But I think the sentiment is that Chinese influence is a national security issue, and it's problematic. And it goes back to hash rate, mining, ASIC manufacture, all of those issues. And by the way, when you're talking about threats, we don't know for sure what's on those ASICs that are manufactured in China. And
that's a great point.
You have a data center for those. My old line of work in information operations, we looked at critical infrastructure attacks. It would not be difficult to overclock those things and get them to basically just melt down. So you could knock out sections of the power grid simultaneously all over the country as part of a larger coordinated attack. And that may sound like a crazy Red Dawn scenario to people, but I wrote plans for China. Part of terminal period. The Chinese write plans for us if there's a full-scale war. Heck, what was it, 5 years ago? They dusted off because every 50 years they have to do it. The plan to go invade Canada, and they had to kind of apologize. They're like, listen, it's just a function. We have to do it. So
I remember that. Yeah,
it's a real issue. And if you think wars aren't going to happen because we've moved to some new phase of humanity, go tell that to the Ukrainians. So it's a real threat. And Taiwan's where all our semiconductor capability basically moved to. There's just virtually all of it. There's a lot going on. Thank God for the CHIPS Act, which both Trump and Biden should get credit for. So we're trying to get that domestic capability restarted. But there's a lot going on that affects the production of cryptocurrencies, the computation around it, and everything else. And I think that's really what they're talking about when they say, hey, BRICS is a threat.
Well, I just keep going back to the concept that risk management is so important in life, and generations of risk managers and people have grown up with the idea that the dollar is behind them, and to just throw that out in a moment's notice is almost impossible. Just because new people, it's good to really get it through. People will have to go through a generation of learning to learn how to manage risk using a whole new system. Without the dollar. And let's face it, the dollar, whether we like it or not, and whether you people out there in other countries like it or not, the dollar is the most popular thing out there because it's liquid. It's out there. Every institution on the planet that needs to get as much dollars as they can do it. If they want to have something to trade for it, they can trade for $1 billion. They can trade for $1 trillion. You can get it, and you can close your oil deal, your mining deal, whatever the big deals are out there in dollars, and not have to pay too much to do it. If you wanted to close even the Chinese yuan, if you wanted to close deals in that, you'd have to pay a lot because it's so hard to convert lots of yuan. You can do little things at currency exchanges, but to pay in that and exchange your currency for that, it's very difficult. And governments come asking, why are you going to do it? And regardless of how much surveillance is in the U.S., the governments really don't ask much. People convert $100 million all the time for business deals from one currency to another, and nobody's the wiser. It's done at offshore banks. It's not even under the control of the U.S. And so to throw that out and throw the ease, we know people vote with their money, right? That's the overriding. You can just like what's the website you're talking about earlier that bets that Americans. Yeah, people literally vote with their money, and they vote with their feet. And there are no lines of people trying to emigrate into BRICS countries. Maybe between them from one hole to the next, that's fine. But the lines are primarily from BRICS countries into OECD countries. And not only with their feet, but with their wallets. Because they know it's not more safe. It's safer to live and exist there for your value. Until that situation changes. And people from OECD countries, those of you, just the Western countries of the world, with democratic or mostly democratic governments, is what we're referring to. Until the people of those countries say, I am getting out of this place. I can't wait to raise my kids in China, Russia, South Africa, Zimbabwe, all these places. There's not going to be any change in this, because with the money flowing one way to the other. And so I like to say, zoom out. What's the real picture? The real picture is that everyone's trying to get in, immigrate, and bring their money with them. Until that flow reverses,
Absolutely. The dollar's not going anywhere anytime soon. And all you're having is a little tremor, or I guess we could go with a Titanic analogy. There's a little bit of field ice up ahead, a couple of miles, and all we have to do is turn to get around it.
Right.
You don't want a BRICS currency being the dominant currency in the world. Okay, the amount of currency manipulation that goes on in BRICS countries, by BRICS countries, China first and foremost, it is, believe me, it is not in your interest, even if you resent some of the heavy-handed things that the United States does with its fiscal policy.
Well, I'll go back to my person I talked to at the beginning of the example I had about Zimbabwe, and I know it's a small currency in the whole thing, but it provides for a great example. They're on their 8th new currency since the famous Robert Mugabe left his government and country in such great care of the next generation, and the people of and they've even come up with a new one based on gold, but they just can't. They don't have enough resources to buy enough gold or mine it and process it in order to use it. So they switched to a U.S. dollar economy. They didn't go to other countries around them. They didn't go to South Africa. They didn't go to Nigeria or Kenya and say, "Hey, let's peg to your system.
They didn't create a BRICS
let's
basket.
work together." I mean, the closest thing to it is the Central African franc.
The CFA. Yeah.
At least those guys they're the same kind of group of people, just with political borders between them, and they at least wisely came together a while ago and said, "We need something better." But Zimbabwe said, "No, you guys, we don't trust you, and you're probably going to come across our border and try to take everything anyways." So we're actually, in the people, and really, frankly, government ministers too, went right into U.S. dollars. And I know we can talk about this subject forever. It's probably boring our viewers to death. But it impacts the crypto market so much because the confidence of the dollar is the confidence essentially of Tether. And Tether is the underpinnings of BTC trading and liquidity. If Tether is not allowed to be traded or is seen as vulnerable to devaluation, there's a big problem out there. And whether people like to say crypto is decentralized and it's outside the fiat world, it's outside the banking, it's so inextricably tied to it. I'm not sure it can ever actually be separated until people are paid in Bitcoin and people spend money in Bitcoin. And that is eons away.
Look at what happens when there's a rate cut. Bitcoin goes up. When there's a rate increase, Bitcoin goes down. I don't know how long it's correlated or however many of them, but it's been going on for a while because Bitcoin is the ultimate kind of risk liquidity sponge. And so when money loosens up, it flows into Bitcoin. And so if you're into cryptocurrencies, you want a strong U.S. economy. It benefits it. And a strong Chinese economy, all the BRICS nations combined, they don't really do much. And consider that Russia's huge, China as well, in Bitcoin mining. And when the U.S. was less involved, when hash rate was lower, when Bitcoin ownership was lower, it didn't do much for Bitcoin. When the U.S. got interested in Bitcoin, that was a component. I'm not going to say it's the only one, but it is. And all the currencies that trail along in Bitcoin's wake.
All of them that trail along in Bitcoin.
Yeah, I don't know who I made madder with that, the Bitcoin people or the altcoin people, but maybe I managed to upset everyone with that one.
All right, before we get we're running along in the tooth today, just a short show here, but I wanted to spend 1 second. I'm going to pull you off screen just for a minute while I talk a little bit about sponsors, Chris, here. If you give me a second here. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, we wouldn't be here without our sponsors. And our sponsor, de jour, as they say, is BitFi. Here we have BitFi's screen up here. And like I said, if you want free money, free cash, all you got to do is sign up using our referral link down below here. They're a cryptocurrency exchange. They're pretty deep in their liquidity and with the amount of coins they offer, and they bring new ones on pretty quickly. So I suggest everyone that wants to check them out, please do so. Add them to the group of exchanges you already have. But it sure helps out our channel when people visit our sponsors. And as always, Audit Chain is our show sponsor, listed here at the bottom. And they're kind of in the quiet period, filing their MICA white paper. And once they come out of that, we'll have more information about them as well. And also, it's halfway through the year here, and I harp about it a lot at the end of the year. But right below me here is Camuso CPA. If you're someone that's having trouble with your CPA, with your taxes because of the failure of your accountant or yourself to account for crypto correctly, you got to get in touch with Patrick at Camuso CPA here. Their firm is predominantly a crypto accounting firm, and Patrick has told me that many of their accounts, clients, matters, however you want to say it, are referrals from other accountants who's just said, I thought I could handle this, but I screwed it up. And now my client needs real help. So make sure you check on with them, because you don't want to get to the end of the year and say, oh, now I need to think about it. You need to be thinking about it now. And so you have a minimal tax exposure, and two, you don't have to pay the IRS that much money. And of course, I also want to say, if you are someone that's a project out there that needs AMAs, if you're a small group out there and want reasonably priced AMAs on Telegram, Twitter Spaces, and here on YouTube, particularly my show here, please go see the DeFi Dojo. DeFi Dojo is a Telegram group and Twitter community, or X community, that brings great AMAs to everyone out there. At reasonable prices. We're not talking Caesar's prices or golems or anything like that. We're talking reasonable packages, and they have good crowds and good audiences that like to see new projects. And lastly, of course, if you're a small token and you want to get your project more exposure and more holders, go see the guys and gals over at worldofrewards.finance. Participate in the reward scheme. What they do is they have a community of people. You bring your token in, and it needs more holders. They expose it to their community and give your tokens rewards out to their holders, and then your wallet count goes up, and you get exposure to new investors all at once. Drop over to them. They're worldofrewards.finance, and that's my sponsor bit for today, Chris.
Sponsors are great.
They that's not what I was trying to do. Trying to do that, and they're just we're getting there, so that the Washington Bureau might become more important here soon with, big Pennsylvania Avenue office and the glass broadcast studio on the ground floor for everyone.
I was hoping for my own spaceship. Maybe there's a spaceship I saw Elon had his factory down in Texas. He walked through it, and he had a bunch of extra ones. I'm sure we could order one up for a small price. The one subtle dig he gets that I do have to admit I always find funny is if he's explaining a problem that got solved that wasn't difficult, he likes to say it's not rocket science. And I think a lot of times people don't quite catch what he's doing there, but it's unsubstantiated. But I know the folks over at the Satoshi Action Fund, and they've done a great job getting some policy injected into bills, and they're saying that supposedly, Trump is going to announce a strategic Bitcoin reserve is a part of his platform in Nashville. So
strategic Bitcoin reserve. Well, the government's currently holding a bunch of it right now.
Yeah, we this is kind of, it's an easy win. We kind of have one. We hold all of that Silk Road and everything else that was seized. I think only recently was the U.S. government surpassed. They're one of the largest holders of Bitcoin in the world. At one point, the U.S. government was the largest. And I think it was tied up in drug forfeit, drug seizure stuff. And I don't think they knew what to do with it. But technically speaking, I guess all you have to do is prohibit the sale of the Bitcoin they already hold, and it is now the reserve. But, again, can you imagine 5 years ago being told that there would be a very significant crypto plank in a presidential campaign? Okay, 8, maybe 4 and 8, better numbers, but like you'd never believe that. And
nope.
And, when it comes back to, because Trump's so crypto and the Trump campaign, I would just point out, if you would have told me that Trump would dodge an assassin's bullet, I know he didn't technically dodge it, but would nearly be assassinated and would stand up like some Churchillian figure in defiance, and then not call for like and have this very sober response. He's clearly listening to his advisors this time around. I've known some folks that have worked with them, and I happened to ask them about the Russia collusion thing, and someone said he doesn't listen to his wife, he doesn't listen to us. Why do you think he would listen to the Russians? Actually, it's the best defense I'd ever heard of it. But when I watched the debate, I thought, if he will just let Joe Biden talk, he'll win. And that is really hard for him to do. And he did it. Like
he did do it. Yep, he did.
Like him, dislike him. This isn't about ideology. If you look at how his campaign is run, it is radically different from the previous two presidential campaigns. And I think that's very interesting. And by the way, if I'm Robert F. Kennedy, how annoyed am I right now that up until like a month ago, I was the headline speaker? That's why.
Well, this is this is what I enjoy about the show. We have over here Donald Trump, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Kathy Wood from ARC, Michael Saylor, Ed Snowden, and then Russell Brand. I mean,
it's a bit of a rogues gallery. Yeah, sorry.
I know he's representing Rumble, and that's I'm not even going to get into that, but anyway, that's. On the Rumble front, what I'll say is, they're like, look, they're free speech absolutists, and that means, if you have a free speech platforms, you get scumbags on there that are saying things, Yeah, you do. People don't like it. I'm not judging. That's their position, and I'm not judging. I'm just glad YouTube lets me on.
Yeah, no kidding. It's long story there. Not involving you, but it's really fascinating to me that crypto has become so important. And I had asked a few folks. I said, "What do you think the level of crypto ownership needs to be a player in the next election?" And I was asking this 2 years ago in the midterms, and people thought it needed to be closer to 30%. But it's a tight election, and 1 in 6 voters is worth the time and effort, and
especially in those swing states.
Yeah, and 1 in 5 own, 1 in 6 are in swing states, and from a purely calculating political perspective, you have to do so little, right? Like just crypto got moved from the little kids table at Thanksgiving to the big kids table, and he's offered almost nothing if you really think about it. Right, you can have a cold wallet, and we'll mine Bitcoin. That's pretty much what he's promised. By the way, don't get me wrong, it's great. It's a start. It took a long time to get here. I don't mean to look down on 13 years of toil that went into it, but we're kind of getting patted on the head in industry, and better than nothing. But it's so easy. It requires so little. It's so little political capital. It's really genius. I mean, it's up there with it's the economy stupid and the Obama campaign, the first one was run so well. The Reagan's campaign. It's like so far it's been an all-time like classic. Now the Republican way is to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. So any time to do something wrong, but wow, it's really been well run, regardless of who you want to vote for.
All right, Chris. Thanks for coming on the show today. That's all we got for. I can't even do that right. That's all the time we got today, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thanks again to our guest here, who I'm trying to bring the name up, but it's too slow for me to do this. Chris Alexander didn't even display because I've got the other thing covered up. With the Pioneer Development Group and the Liberty Blockchain. We look forward to having you on again and bringing wisdom from our Washington, D.C. bureau here all the way to the global headquarters of DYOR Media. But thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it, and we will see you next time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we got for the show today. Hey, Chris, if you just hang around the scenes for a second back there, I appreciate it. That's all we got for you today. Thanks for tuning in. To those of you who watched us on X, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And for those of you that watched everywhere else, thank you very much. And once again, my name is Tom, otherwise known as Striking here in the digital media universe. So glad to have hosted another episode of DYOR Live here on the DYOR Media Network. We will see you next week. No Free Rant Friday tomorrow. We'll see you next week on the DYOR Media Network. So be there.